earning double pay from all the rest of the lecturers, or double zero. Please welcome Vivian Rowan.
Good afternoon, gentlemen and ladies. Thank you for reappearing again, but let's face it, there's nowhere you can run really, is there? So you're stuck with me now. A couple of things I just want to say. When you go to the pyramids, one of the cruises I did, a lady went to see the sound and light show, and she came back to the next lecture, and she said, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Yeah, of course you can." She said, "Is it true that they built the pyramids purposely for the sound and light show?" The answer, of course, is no. But there you go, I do get asked some questions. Now also, when you go to Cairo, if you think of it this way, Cairo is like Lanzarote, Ibiza, places like that. It is a culture shock. Do not let it put you off going to Luxor. Luxor is like going to Eastbourne, and you literally go back in time. So please bear that in mind tomorrow when you go to Cairo. Right, so we will start. What I'm going to do on this lecture is actually give you the history of ancient Egypt. So we're now going to travel back to the land of the pharaohs some 4,000 years ago. Now, how did it all start? Well, it started, obviously, with the Blue Nile, which is along here. Without the Nile, Egypt would never have existed. It enabled them to build the mud huts, grow crops, irrigate the land, and to survive. And it starts down here at Lake Victoria. In Uganda, you have the White Nile and you have the Blue Nile. It goes along here. At the city of Khartoum, the White Nile goes on its way. The Blue Nile carries on all the way through to the Mediterranean Sea. And this is called the Delta. And when you look at it on a proper map, one of the recent maps, it looks like the lotus flower, which is the emblem of ancient Egypt. It's called blue because the Arabic term for black is blue, hence the reason that we have the Blue Nile. It's the longest river in the world. It actually measures 4,184 miles. At one time, they did think it was the Amazon, but it's now been proved it is the Nile. And it flows the opposite way. As a normal current goes, you go up the Nile and down the other way. It sort of crosses itself. It's the opposite way to any other flowing river. Here it is from a satellite view across here. And that is another area. There's the lotus here, along here at the Delta. This is where they meet. That's the White Nile that branches off at Khartoum, and the Blue Nile carries through. This is what you'll see when you go to Luxor. People think, oh, it's a very arid land. It isn't. It's very, very green. And this is the Nile here. You don't swim in the Nile, obviously, because there's it's like a maggot, and it burrows into your skin, and it can kill you. But what they do say, if you go on a felucca, where you manage to put your hand in the water, you will always return to the Nile. This is a map of the old days in pharaonic times. Again, we've got the Delta along here. Kemet, which means the Black Land. That's the city of Akhetaten, the home of Tutankhamun. Along here, we go right through to Aswan, which is the home of Ramesses the Great, the temple of Abu Simbel. Deshret means the Red Land. The silt that's left behind after the inundation of the Nile is the most fertile silt in the world. It flooded the Nile 3 times a year, and that was when all the harvesting were done and the crops were picked. When it wasn't flooding, that's when the workers built the tombs and the temples for the pharaohs. That's a modern day map. Normally we have here the Red Sea, if you go on the Red Sea cruises. Here is now what it looks like with all, there's Alexandria, where you're all going tomorrow, El Alamein. Here we've got Sphinxi, the pyramids. We've got the mosque. Here we've got the statue of Ramesses at Karnak Temple. Along here we've got the Temple of Hatshepsut, Temple of Horus Komombo. here we have the Temple of Philae in Philae Island, and there we have Abu Simbel, the magnificent temple of Ramesses that was moved back in 1960 by UNESCO because it was disappearing into Lake Nassau. How did it all start? The earliest record we have goes back to one king, Narmer, the unification of Egypt. As I said, there's Upper Egypt and there's Lower Egypt. The red crown represents upper, the white crown the lower. He combined the two along here, and it's known as the unification of Egypt. So it came under one crown. And this is the Narmer palette. And here is a famous smiting scene. This is Narmer, and he's wearing the white crown. There he has a mace, and these are the captives, and it's called the smiting scene. Here we have Aha, which is debatable. They're not quite sure whether he was actually a pharaoh. We've no record, we've no proof. And it's because of this gentleman here that we actually have the written records. England, Britain, there's no written records. I've tried to find out what we had at the same time, and there's nothing. We were cavemen and making strange noises. So it's because of all the writings that we know what we know today. The Chinese were probably the oldest civilization, but unfortunately they never wrote anything down, whereas the Egyptians did. This is the other side of the palette. There, he's got the red crown. And here we have the unification. We've got the lions, and we've got the head of the snakes here, representing unification. That is, it looks like a woolly mammoth here. It isn't, obviously, but that's what it's portrayed as. What's the timeline in ancient Egypt? So we start